Joining us now at the library desk is John Deaton. John's a lawyer, cryptocurrency advocate, who's running for the Republican nomination to oppose Elizabeth Warren and succeed her in the Senate. John, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you both. It's my honor to be here.
Yeah,
Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. So tell people a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
All right. Well, I have a unique background. I'm from a single mother, welfare and food stamps. I was born and raised in a place called Highland Park, Detroit. If you look it up, it's ranked in the top 5 worst neighborhoods in America for the last 40 years. To give you an example, there's a sign not too far from my house that I grew up in that says, "Enter at your own risk. Police do not patrol the area," put up by the City of Detroit Council. Give you an example, my mother was stabbed in front of me when I was 6 years old. First day of high school, I had a gun shoved in my mouth and the hammer cocked. Unfortunately, I was a victim of child rape for 2 years of a child predator. My best friend was killed in front of me by a drive-by shooting. I was a high school dropout like everyone in my family before me for the first 4 months, and I got lucky. I decided to break the cycle because my mother, who's my hero, put her arms around me and said, "Why are you crying so much?" And I said, "Because I want to go to high school, because I want to go to college, and I got to graduate high school." And she said, "Well, just work for 3 years, and I'll sign when you're 17 like your brother, and you could join the military." And I said, "Mom, I want to go to college. I need to graduate high school." And my mom, my hero, put her arms around me and said, "Son, I'm sorry, but that's not for people like us." That's what generational poverty does to people. My mother, again, my hero, despite saying that, is someone who was born in generational poverty, 6th grade education. My father abandoned us in that neighborhood and left her alone. And so I vowed to break that cycle. I worked myself through high school, through college, and I made my way here to Boston, New England School of Law, and I graduated. And ironically, I realized I am the American dream. I'm the embodiment of it and everything that's capable in a great country. And I ended up joining the Marine Corps as an officer, judge advocate. After 7 years of active duty, I've been a lawyer representing mesothelioma and lung cancer victims, going against Travelers Insurance and Liberty Mutual and General Electric and all the major corporations for 2 decades across the Commonwealth. I've been representing working families for 2 years across the Commonwealth, and I'm looking forward to the comparison of who represents the little guy, me or Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Speaking of the Commonwealth, we love Rhode Island on this show. Margery spent some time there. You just moved here a bunch of months ago. Why should people say that a recent transplant is, even if you have great credentials, is an appropriate person to represent them in the U.S. Senate?
Well, first of all, I put my Massachusetts credentials up against anyone. First of all, I couldn't get into Harvard Law or pay for it, but the Marine Corps chose me over Harvard Law, BC Law, BU Law, Suffolk Law to represent the Commonwealth for the 1994 Judge Advocate Law contract. And for 22 years, I've been representing here. Yes, did I live for the last decade, except in January, on the border of Seacon, where I did all my shopping in Seacon? Yes.
That's enough for me. If you shop in Massachusetts, did you ever vote here?
No,
did you ever vote here?
No, but let me tell you that.
Would that not, I mean, as a voter, I mean, I assume you've been voting your whole life. Wouldn't that put you off? Even if they love what John Deaton stands for, the guy's never voted in our state. Yeah, he went to law school here. He moved here 5 months ago, arguably to run for the Senate. Wouldn't that bother you as a voter?
No, not if they see what I've been doing. For 22 years, I've been representing plumbers, pipe fitters, service members, shipyard workers, auto mechanics, electricians. I've been representing the working class people of this Commonwealth for 2 decades against the major corporation insurance companies. Elizabeth Warren
and
represented...
you shop in Massachusetts. You should add that to every line.
Well, my daughter was a senior, just graduated UMass Amherst. And let me tell you something, Jim. If it was good enough to represent the Commonwealth in the Marine Corps, I believe representing the Commonwealth with Marines is a heck of a lot more honorable than 99 other career politician elites in Washington, D.C.
You know, from your literature, it's pretty clear. We talk nonstop about the Republican candidate for president. You don't support Donald Trump, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why?
Well, I don't support him. I didn't vote for him. If you look up, you'll see that I've been a harsh critic. I don't support Joe Biden or Donald Trump this election.
Who are you voting for?
I'm going to write in someone.
Who are you writing in?
Probably Charlie Baker.
And what's the value of Charlie Baker, for those who have short memories? I think we used to be governor of Massachusetts.
Correct,
the most popular governor in America.
He was, and he was with us every month for 12 years, probably 4 years before he was governor, and then 4 years, 8 years as governor. he's not going to be the next president of the United States.
That's correct.
You want to cast critical votes on things that affect people in this country every single day, but you've decided that your presidential vote is going to be thrown away.
No, it's not. I've decided not to participate, to take a stand, Jim, that I refuse to participate in the choice of a lesser of two evils. Can I respectfully ask you a question?
Of course you can.
Aren't you tired of having to choose between the lesser of two bad candidates?
Can I respectfully answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I am.
And so all I'm doing is taking a stand and saying, I
don't think
that.
Biden is a bad, I think he's done a wonderful job as president. I should be clear, you and I disagree on that. But the basic notion that America is voting on two people they don't want to be president is a troubling thing to me, too.
And I'm rejecting it and saying, listen,
Understood.
if you don't support the people that I want to support, poor people and expanding the middle class, working families, then I don't support you. And I don't think the policies are any different. Listen, if you think that poor people living in the hood think there's a big difference between George W. Bush and Barack Obama, you're not paying attention to poor people.
You don't think they think that Elizabeth Warren, who you want fired so you can be hired, stands up for those people?
No, she doesn't stand up for those people. I'm going to show them a real fighter for working families. Why does she support the accredited investor rule that excludes 92% of the American public from investing in private equity?
Well, she supported debt relief for students who were buried. She was one of the leaders of the effort to double child care under some of these COVID measures. I know you care deeply about opioids. She was involved in that effort to get billions of federal dollars. I understand you might say I'm a better advocate for poor people. Your position is she doesn't care about low income?
Now, listen, there was an article in the Commonwealth Beacon that said Elizabeth Warren's new GOP opponent, John Deaton, sounds a lot like ... Elizabeth Warren.
Read it.
Because I talk about opioid addiction. I talk about poor people. My approach is fundamentally different. She's great at fighting against things and people. That's not the same as fighting for. Example, she's great at fighting against the wealthy and the rich. That is not the same as fighting for the poor and for working families.
But her wealth tax,
hold
John,
on.
wait, just one last thing. Her wealth tax, John Deaton, the funding would go to universal child care. Is that not fighting somebody and benefiting somebody?
You're telling me that when your taxes go to the government, that translates directly into poor people's pocket? It does not. Let me tell you something. Someone who grew up on welfare and food stamps, someone who understands that we need a safety net for people, who will never abandon the people that I grew up with when I become a U.S. Senator, giving them an extra $50 or $100 in food stamps is not helping them.
Well,
I want to lift them up. I do not want to be one of the last poor people in this country to make it. And I get emotional about it because it lives in here. All right? Income inequality is a political slogan to Senator Warren. It lives inside here, and I'm looking forward to the comparison.
Hold on. So let's talk about that, because I think generally speaking, people do think Elizabeth Warren is a staunch fighter for poor people and the middle class. Consumer product safety, that was a whole big thing she did. She's been really tough on the banks. That was another, I think that's a legitimate thing that she's absolutely done. When she talked about having only 7% of your income go toward child care, there were mothers all over America that were very excited about that. Of course, it didn't happen. So how would you be better, especially as a Republican going to the Senate, and Republicans are not exactly representing what a lot of people in Massachusetts think should be done?
First of all, I'm John Deaton. You can't paint me with the same brush as you paint all Republicans. But you brought up the banks. Let me give you an example. It's why I favor term limits. Okay? Senator Warren, I believe, had good intentions. I'm not name-calling her. I'm not going negative on her. I'll hold her accountable. But 12 years ago, 13 years ago, she pounded the table, outraged that the bankers didn't go to prison from the 2008 financial crisis. She vowed to hold those bankers accountable. Who do you think wrote her anti-crypto bill? The banking industry, and she just signed off on it. She's the epitome of what happens. Even with good intentions like she may have had, you become part of the problem of the broken system when you stay there and you become a career politician. She's the epitome of that, and I'm looking forward to showing the people. You brought up consumer. I won Consumer Advocate of the Year. I won Defender of Freedom of the Year, worked for fighting families. I fought the United States government. I'm not a securities lawyer. I'm a mesothelioma lawyer. And I fought the U.S. government and sued the Securities Exchange Commission because of what it was doing to work regular people, 627 token holders in Massachusetts. I reached out to Senator Warren's office because she sits on the banking committee. She oversees the SEC. I couldn't even get an intern to return my call, and I have hundreds of those people.
We're talking to John Deaton, who's one of the Republicans running for the nomination to run against Elizabeth Warren for the U.S. Senate from Massachusetts.
You know, I just wanted to, you said you don't support Donald Trump, and you're much more of a social liberal than certainly Trump is, or J.D. Vance is running with him. What would you have voted if you had a chance on the appointment of Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court?
Well, you know, I wasn't in the Senate, and I'll be honest, I haven't studied all of them. They would have had to earn my vote. But just so you know, I've already publicly stated that I disagree with the Dobbs decision, and I actually spoke out first, even before Senator Warren, on the IVF Alabama decision, saying out-of-control judges need to get in line and do their job and stop letting politics interfere. So I'm a pro-choice Republican. I have 3 daughters. I'm incapable of supporting laws that are going to take the rights away from my daughters. That doesn't mean I favor late-term abortions unless there's exceptions for fetal anomalies or life of the mother, but I am a pro-choice candidate. I'm for women.
You know what I don't understand? And by the way, my understanding is you support same-sex marriage, too. Is that correct?
Before Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton, I believe in freedom. And so when they did not support gay marriage, when they were like, only civil unions, it's only a man and woman, I was saying, do we live in America? Did I wear a United States Marine Corps officer uniform for no reason? It's America. Love who you want to love.
But, John, you know, one of the things I found weird, I would argue in light of the fact that same-sex marriage originated with the brilliant pen of Margaret Marshall, who we love having join us here, and obviously this is about as pro-choice a state as any in the country, and there's a lot of concern in the state that a lot of Republicans, starting with Donald Trump on down, are not pro-choice. I went to your website, and you have all these issues, things which I found to be very interesting, by the way, and I thought pretty comprehensive, which is to your credit. There's not a link to choice. There's not a link to same-sex marriage. Why'd you choose not to tell the voters at their primary source of information for you about those issues,
if you read my bio,
care about them?
If you read my bio, it says that I'm pro-choice.
It's not in the issues. It's not in the issues section.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to my campaign. I haven't been on my site in a while. But I tell you, listen, let me make it clear. I just said I am a pro-choice candidate who is a father of 3 daughters who supports the laws of Massachusetts as it relates to women's reproductive rights, and I will fight for that.
So why are you a Republican?
Why am I a Republican?
Yeah.
See, that's the.
We used to ask Charlie Baker that question. You're a candidate for president. We used to ask him.
Well, listen, this is the problem. We got to get back to voting for who's the best candidate, right? And sometimes that's going to be a Democrat, and sometimes that's going to be a Republican. I believe in fiscal responsibility. 80% of all U.S. dollars have been printed in the last 4 years. If that doesn't shock you, then I don't know what does. We are stealing from younger generations. I have a 5-year-old daughter. We are stealing from their future because we don't have any control. Both parties have no control when it comes to fiscal responsibility. So I am a fiscally conservative, common sense Republican who is socially or liberally moderate.
Okay.
You know, John Deaton, can we get back for a second? With all due respect, when you say I haven't studied their records, 3 of the most we both believe the single most important thing when you're voting for president is who he or someday she picks the Supreme Court. Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, and Gorsuch have helped change the future of this country. Don't you say you haven't studied it well enough? Don't you think you have an obligation before an election to let the voters of Massachusetts know, since you'd be in the Senate voting potentially on Supreme Court nominees, how you would have voted on the 3 people who helped overturn the decision Roe v. Wade, which you support?
Well, what I was saying is I haven't sat and read all of their lower decisions and things like that.
Based on what you know, would you have voted for them? Every Republican, Republican.
Neil Gorsuch, probably maybe not the other 2.
Okay, Gorsuch, yes, the other 2, no.
How about some of the big issues that the Republican Party doesn't support? Climate change, guns. Where are you on those 2?
I support the laws of Massachusetts as it relates to the Second Amendment and guns, and I believe in climate change. I believe anyone who says that climate change isn't real is being a fool or being ignorant. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean I support, we're going to go carbon emission by 2050 and eliminate thousands of jobs with no plan and then give economic advantages to other global countries. We have to have common sense, multifaceted approach that includes solar, that includes wind, that includes hydro. You know, we can't even talk about, most experts in this area think that small nuclear could be an option. But you can't even talk about that because it becomes, oh, you know, that's taboo. We have to get back to common sense. And I'm a common sense Republican. You know, and I got news for you. A lot of Democrats are coming my way when they learn who I am.
You know, John Deaton, you don't know me, but I don't like telling people where I had lunch yesterday. This is credit. You seem to be, you don't want to hide anything about you. The line that everybody, you know this, quoted about you the day you announced was this cocaine-fueled sex bender. Why did you choose, I mean, it's not like it's on your resume.
Right.
Why did you choose to tell the people this?
Well, listen, when I wrote my book, Food Stamp Warrior, it was...
I'm sorry I didn't reference that.
No, it's fine. I wrote a book. For 40 years, I never told anyone that I was raped. For 2 years, brutally. For 40 years, I never talked about my mother being stabbed. I never talked about my mother being hospitalized on 3 other occasions. I never talked about the gun in my mouth with the hammer cocked. I never talked about my best friend, Derek, dying in my arms at 17 years old. I never talked about that. I was so focused on overcoming poverty and being a good father. If I became a father, unlike my own, I pushed it down. And I said, I'm not going to be a victim. I can't change it. Just move ahead. And then I did it. I had lots of money in the bank. I was a great father. My daughters are in college. I'm in this nice home. I ended up being divorced. My ex-wife threw a fundraiser for me to give you an idea.
That's pretty nice.
And all of a sudden, Jim, I'm waking up at 3 in the morning crying. I'm crying with my mom crawling on the ground. I'm crying with Derek, my best friend, dying in my arms. I'm crying about the rapes for the first time in 40 years. And I'm like, why is this happening to me 40 years later? So my book was about unexamined trauma, right? You can push it down and you can pretend it didn't happen, but eventually it will catch up to you when you least expect it. And my mother was dying, and at the same time, I was dealing. So what I did was give an all-tale memoir of this is my life. I was acting out because I didn't want to be alone. And I was trying to prove that, like, I'm a guy, I'm a man.
So what
right?
did that do for you, being that incredibly open about all of the pain and trauma in your life? What's that done for you? It's
been the best thing. Whether Senator Warren, you know, as you know, Opposition Research 101 is right there in that book for Senator Warren to say anything mistake I've made, I've admitted it. But I'll never regret that book. I've had grown men my age or older with tears in their eyes saying, John, you know, you sharing that helped me. I experienced, you know, sexual abuse or domestic violence or poverty. The thing I've learned, Jim, about this book is that it resonates with people. We all have so much more in common, whether it's the poverty or whether it's the deadbeat dad or whether it's sexual abuse or whether it's opioid addiction, you know, because I got injured in the Marine Corps on active duty, not in combat, but I had a couple on training, a couple back surgeries, and they gave me this pill called OxyContin, and they said it's not addictive. Take that for 120 milligrams a day for 3 months, and I can assure you it's addictive. So when my mom was dying, all of this was surfacing, and the book was cathartic for me, and that's why I wrote it out. And I made a choice to just tell it all and be honest and transparent, and most people that read it, they welcome that transparency.
Well, you're making up for me being honest about nothing. I don't mean honest, to be open about nothing. I'm honest.
So we only have a minute left, but your mom died then before you wrote the book and before she saw.
You're gonna make me cry, but yeah.
What point in your life were you at that point? Had you gone to law school and started representing?
Yeah, my mother was able to see me succeed.
Okay.
I talk about it in the book. My mother, you know, John never did anything wrong, and I was like, she was wrong. You know, I did a few things wrong, but she was very proud. And like I said, I'm the American dream. Who can go from that background to run for the United States Senate and take on one of Washington's elites? I love this country.
What's your website, John Deaton?
JohnDeatonForSenate.com.
Great.
And it's DEATON.
Yes.
Congratulations. Good luck, and I hope you'll visit us again, John Deaton.
I'll visit as much as you'll have me.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much for being with us.